If you have your Bibles, you want to break them out, we're going to be in Deuteronomy chapter 13. So if you don't have a physical Bible with you, you got your phone, yes, you may open that up, and I promise I won't think you're looking at Facebook or something while I'm speaking. So Deuteronomy chapter 13. Now, Deuteronomy is the fifth book of the Old Testament. Just a little bit of groundwork here, background for us all. Doesn't hurt to go back and look at a couple of different things like that. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Now, those words I just said are basically English variations of Greek words, but the text is written in Hebrew. So that's just kind of fun to put all that together. Genesis basically means beginning. Exodus means just what it sounds like. It's the Exodus. They're leaving Egypt. Leviticus basically means law. It's a little more involved than that, but we could think of a law. Numbers also means just what it sounds like. Then you get to Deuteronomy, and that really means second law. That deuto in front there is the same word we use for like duet, two people singing together. So it means second, and really second law. Now, second law, it doesn't mean that somehow Deuteronomy replaced everything that was in Leviticus. It's kind of an added to, although it's a little bit different. A lot of the laws in Leviticus, not all of them, but just a number, you can kind of see this, they tend to be geared to the people that would have heard it the first time. Those that have come out of Egypt, and now they're in this 40-year wandering campaign. Then you get to Deuteronomy, it's a little bit different. Deuteronomy takes place right at the end of Moses' life. They are now getting ready to head into the promised land. The previous generation has all died off except for Caleb and Joshua and Moses, but Moses isn't going to make it to the promised land. So he knows this is the very end. So the hearers of Deuteronomy, they're hearing these words differently than the previous generation would have. Previous generations come out of Egypt. There was a lot of problems with that, and we could go into that, but that's a whole nother teaching. They've all died off. Now this new group has come on. They've not experienced Egypt. They didn't experience the Red Sea. They didn't experience a lot of the things that happened, hearing about the plagues and all. They didn't experience any of that. They're a completely new generation. Moses is at the end of his life, and he wants to make sure they understand some things before they go into and now occupy the promised land. Up to this point, they've been all nomadic. And now all of a sudden, they're going to have their own place. And so there's some different laws, and you can kind of see how that's set up for them as they're living there. So that's kind of what's going on here in Deuteronomy. Now you get to chapter 13, and the first handful of verses in chapter 13 are basically like this. If somebody gives you a prophecy, even if they do signs, even if these signs and miracles, even if those things happen, if they tell you something that's contrary to the rest of the Word of God that you know about, if they tell you that this is some false god and it's brought you out of Egypt, if they do that, don't listen to them at all. I don't care what sort of miracles and so on they produce. And then the last part of chapter 13 is basically saying what you're supposed to do with them. God takes representing him very seriously. But in the middle of this, in verse 4, there's this great verse. We're going to park ourselves this morning in verse 4. I'm going to read this probably the first of about 12 times as we go through this. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him. Keep his commandments and obey his voice. You shall serve him and hold fast to him. Now, there's 6 verbs in that. In English, it's 7, but in Hebrew, it's 6 verbs. 6 words. 6 words that we need to keep into our mind and incorporate into our life. Now, I don't know how many times I've sat where you are, and I've heard some preacher get up and say, okay, here's 7 things to do, and here's 10 things not to do, and here's 3 things to incorporate, and here's 4, and you get lost in it, okay? And it can be kind of discouraging because you think, really? I got to keep another list? I have enough lists and so on. Okay, so I'm trying to avoid the word list here. I want you to think of these 6 things as principles. It's not really something you check off I've completed that, so I can go to the next one. I've completed that, go to the next one. It's not really that way. It's more or less principles. It's basic ways of understanding. You could say it's guardrails or guidelines if that's what you want to do. But there's 6 of them in here. Now, I think if you incorporate these 6 things, you're going to end up being more successful as a believer. Just more successful in life. You're going to be happy. You're going to be content. Now, it's not like these 6 things are somehow going to inoculate you from ever having hard times. That's not what it does. But it sure does help you prepare for them. And it does help you get through all those different things. These 6 words here in in Deuteronomy, I think are really important for us to grasp and understand. So we're going to go through this piece by piece, and each word, and kind of show you how this fits in your life. The first one, it jumps right out there to it, doesn't it? You shall walk. You shall walk. Walking is, who asked me this morning, did I walk this morning? Somebody, yeah, okay. Did I walk? Yeah, because I tend to like to walk. Walking is the probably almost the lone example of exercise that I enjoy doing, as you could see. But yeah, we think of walking as that, as an exercise or a recreational activity. That tends to be what we think about it. People that heard this for the first time under Moses, they wouldn't have thought about it that way. Because everywhere they went, they walked. I mean, unless you all live in one of these places right here, everybody rode in a car today. Car, minivan, truck, whatever it was. And you rode here, because that's what we do. We don't walk to the market. We don't walk to the in-laws. We don't walk to see our grandkids, of course, unless they live right beside us. But the idea is that everywhere we go, we usually drive. We don't walk. When he's talking about this, that's what he means. It's everywhere you go. When you walk, everywhere you go, everywhere you are, notice what they're supposed to do. When you walk, what's the word after that? After. When you walk after the Lord. In other words, he's gone before you. You're walking, you are pursuing him in everything you do. Okay, well, Jeff, you're kind of, everything. Yes, everything. Yeah. Mowing the lawn? Yes. Yes. Going to the market? Yes. Everything. Yeah, we tend to think of the spiritual things. Yeah, going to church and praying. Yeah, we do all these good, godly things, and we're walking after the Lord. That's true, you are, but it's everything. It's everything. I cannot stress this enough, how important it is that we get that principle, that mindset in us, that I'm constantly walking with, following the Lord in everything we do. It's just a great idea, a great concept when we think of serving the Lord this way. Okay, that's the first verb, the first work there is walk. Here's the second one. You shall walk after the Lord your God, and yes, I heard someone say it, fear him. Now, English, Hebrew, and Greek kind of all do the same thing with that word fear. It can mean a lot of different things. It can mean fear as in, scared, fear. Okay, it can mean that. It can also mean reverence, respect, honor, and again, Hebrew, Greek, and English, you have to kind of understand the context of how the word's being used, to understand the word, how it's being used. There's a cute little thing that periodically shows itself on social media. I don't know how many times I've seen it. I've seen it in Christian movies. This little phrase, 365 times, God tells us in his word, do not be afraid. I remember watching a Christian movie one time, and it's one of the rare Christian movies I like, and I'm watching that, and I hear that line, and I got to thinking, I wonder if it's true. Is it? So I started hunting it down, and unfortunately it's not. Now it does appear a lot, but do not be afraid or do not fear appears roughly 200 times in the Bible, roughly. That's still a lot, but it's not 365. But you know what it does say? Way over 200 times, that we are to fear something. We're to fear the Lord. We're to fear His word. We're supposed to be respectful of it. We're respectful of Him. Remember, we're supposed to fear Him. So it's not a scared thing, but to be respectful, to give Him honor. There's a couple songs that we sang here this morning where it talks about He is worthy. That line, He is worthy, is repeated in there a lot. How much He is worthy of the honor and glory. Yes, because He is. You realize, boy, it has to do with authority. That's so much what this word has to do with. Right? Understanding and respecting authority. Fearing Him, but it's more than just that when it applies to each of us individually. One of the, in fact, it's the first of the 10 commandments that comes with the promise, and is to honor your father and mother. Okay, it's not the exact same word, but it means much the same. It's an honoring thing. It's learning authority, learning to respect authority. The earlier you learn this in life, the better off you are, okay? The earlier you learn this, man, the better off you are. Because you can't just, boy, you've seen this. I know I've seen this. People, but no one can tell me what to do. Well, sorry, yes, that people do tell us what to do all the time. And you know what? If we're fearing the Lord, if we're honoring Him, if we're respecting Him, He's going to tell us what to do, and we need to follow through on that. So we're supposed to walk with the Lord. Yep. Actually, walk after Him is what that said. And secondly, now we're supposed to fear Him. Here's the third word. I'll read the verse again. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear Him and keep His commands. The word there, keep, means to honor. Guard, really. Guard, observe, preserve, watch over. Mark, or I love this one, look narrowly at His commandments. Look narrowly at. What does that imply? It's kind of study. It's kind of look closely. It's dig into this. So yeah, to do that, to keep His word, to follow through on it, it does imply there's a, you kind of need to know it. Okay, so knowing His word really does help us in keeping it. Now, with that, let me give you the big caveat, because this happens often. Well, it's a huge book. You expect me to know this? Man, the pages are really thin. There's a lot of print on this thing. Man, what is this? 1,500 pages in this thing or more. I can't possibly keep that. So, I'm just, okay, here's a simple thing. Why don't you just obey what you know? What do you know? I know John 3:16. Awesome. Keep that. What does that say? God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Man, there's deep theology right there. Woo, that's deep. Yeah, we tend to gloss over that thing, but man, just keep that. You don't know who Jesus is, the one that only begotten Son of God? Wow. How about the 10 Commandments? I would bet you all of us in here could probably easily name 4 of them. Very, very simple. And probably everybody out there can. My guess is almost every atheist could mention these 4. Okay, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't kill, you shouldn't lie, and you shouldn't commit adultery. Okay, so you got those 4. Just 4 of the 10. Just 4. You realize how much better your life is if you just keep 4 of those 10. Just 4 of them. How much different would our world be? We're not talking about keeping the whole book. Now, you need to be in more than just, I hope you know more than the 10 Commandments. I sure hope you know more than 4 of them. But the idea is that just keep what you know. You do not have to know the whole thing. Look, I've been in Bible studies and teaching Bible study for close to, not quite, but close to 50 years now, okay? I don't know everything. Todd might, he's really smart, but I don't know everything. So I have to just keep what I know. Just keep what you, don't be afraid of the size of the book. Don't be afraid because you don't understand Hebrew. That's fine. Don't be afraid that you can't figure out Paul's sentences sometimes in Romans that are really complicated. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just obey what you know. If you know 3 verses, concentrate on those 3. It's amazing how the Lord will open up your eyes to things. Once you make the decision, okay, Lord, I want to know this, okay? I'm going to concentrate on this. I'm going to obey this. I'm going to apply this in my life. Man, it's amazing how those things happen. So, yes, okay. All right. That's the third thing. But that's not all. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice. Of the 6 words I'm going to give you, this is my most favorite one. Obey his voice. It's much like keeping his commandments, but it's a little bit different. Yeah. It's a little bit different. Now, it's a matter of really hearing him, particularly apply those commandments in your life. Well, I'm just not a Bible student, I can't say I've ever heard God talk to me. I don't know. You have. If you've been walking with the Lord at all, you've heard his voice. Now, you may not have recognized it, but you've heard it. And you know what often happens to me in weird situations? Yeah, when I'm in my study and I'm working on something and I'm planning, Lord gives me things and I write it down. Okay, that's fine. But how about when I'm walking through the grocery store? Maybe this never happened to you, but it happens to me all the time. Go down that aisle. I just feel this go down that aisle. And I tend to fight this. I look at my list, because I have a list when I go grocery shopping. I don't need anything on that aisle. And I go down the other way. Go back and go down that aisle. That's just me talking. I know there's French fries down that aisle and I like them. But that's not, go down that aisle. I ignore it. Go through the checkout, get in my car. I have just started. I put the car in reverse because I'm backing out of my space, and all of a sudden I realize I forgot something. It wasn't on the list, but guess what? It was in that aisle. Okay, that's cute and funny and all that stuff, but there's multiple other times where you find out there's somebody maybe that you know there. Or it opens up just another idea of something else that kind of sparks your imagination through something else. And it's amazing how many times this happens. This has happened to me when I'm mowing the grass. Definitely happens to me when I'm working on my cars. It just happens all the time. Obey his voice. Now, here's the cool thing about his voice. It's, for me anyhow, usually not loud. It's usually sometimes, and in fact, I even hate to say it's a voice, it's more of an impression. A lot of great examples of this in Scripture. I want to show you probably my most favorite one, okay? Spend a little bit of time here on this. Okay, this is in 1 Kings chapter 19. Now, in chapter 18, Elijah has this big confrontation with the prophets of Baal. Okay, there's 450 of them, and then there's another 400 that are connected to them earlier. A showdown at Mount Carmel. It's Wild West scene to me is always how I picture this. Okay, and the prophets of Baal go first, and they put their sacrifice on the altar, and then they're chanting and are doing all sorts of things. And Elijah's just kind of standing there. He is mocking them tremendously. Got to yell louder. Maybe he's on vacation. Got to yell louder. Maybe he's in the bathroom. Of course, nothing happens. Finally, they give up, and they turn it over to Elijah, and he does this really crazy thing. He takes water and pours it on the sacrifice. So much of it, he pours it on the wood. The wood's just all soaking. Then they dig this big old trench the whole way around it, and they fill that up with water. Just like 12 selas of water, which I believe is something like 24 gallons. Okay, so it's a lot. It's a lot of water that's all in there. Elijah gives this very simple prayer. Lord, Lord, show everybody yours God. They're all standing around watching. So why don't you just have on fire? He barely gets the words out of his mouth. Whoom! Fire comes down, boom, consumes everything. Not just the sacrifice, not just the altar, but the water. Just takes it all out. And then he basically says, okay, all you people watching, these people are evil. Let's get rid of them. And they execute all these. It's 850 prophets. Big victory, right? Elijah, like, he's the big man, right? Except word gets back to Queen Jezebel. She's Ahab's wife. She is one evil woman. And she basically says, she gets a message to Elijah. A day from now, you're going to be just like those prophets. Basically, I'm coming after you. We're going to take your head off. You're done. Elijah, great victory. You think he'd stand up to this woman? No, he doesn't. He takes off and runs. Now, in chapter 19, you can see, if you know anything about geography of Israel, where he goes, how he does this. He's in Samaria, where this happens. Mount Carmel's actually almost the same place. It's a little further to the west. But anyhow, that's Samaria is kind of where the capital of ancient Israel was. And he flees from there. It's in the northern part of Israel. Not the far north, but it's further north than Jerusalem. He takes off, and the first place he stops is way down in Beersheba. Now, Beersheba is at the southern part of the nation of Judah, the Judean desert, and he's down there. He stops there for a while. Then he picks up and goes further, and he goes way south to Mount Horeb. It's basically the southern part of the Sinai Peninsula. This is about as far away as about far south as he's going to be able to go. And he's the whole way down. He is running. And then chapter 19 happens. Verse 11 is where I want you to see. Then he, that's God, said, "Go out, stand on the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains, broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord." It kind of sounds like a tornado, but kind of a worse tornado than I've ever heard about. We got rocks being picked up and thrown against other rocks and busting apart. This is a pretty substantial wind. But the Lord wasn't in the wind. What? After the wind, an earthquake. Huh? But the Lord wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. We got earth, wind, and fire here. Not the old pop group, but we got earth, wind, and fire, really. But the Lord's not in any of that. The Lord wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a still, small voice. That's fascinating to me. All this noise, this cacophony of noise that's handed out. You know how loud windstorms are. And you got an earthquake and how vigorous that is. And a fire, that's loud too, and it's scary, and they got all that stuff going on, and yet the Lord's not in any of that. He's in this still, small voice. There's a great verse in Isaiah. We're not going to have it on the screen here. It's Isaiah 30, chapter 20, or verse 21 of chapter 30, where it talks about you're going to hear a voice behind you to tell you to go to the left or the right. Basically, listen to that voice. Now, that's how the Lord usually speaks to us. It's this still small voice. So when back in Deuteronomy 13, when he says, not just keep his commandments, but to obey his voice, that's what he's talking about. It's this applying the things you've learned in your life, kind of on a regular basis. You're going to hear him. Now, to do this, we have to acknowledge that there's a lot of things competing for our attention. And I mean a lot. I want to say it's more than they would have dealt with. I don't know that for sure. I wasn't alive back then. But, I know in my lifetime, all these things that were supposed to make our lives simple have actually made them more complicated in many ways, right? I mean, I'm up here speaking now, and what do I have? My crazy phone with me, okay? You're just lucky I don't pull it out and check it while I'm talking. We're so tied to information, and we're so tied to all the noise that's around, because we are surrounded by a lot of noise. It's constantly things jammering for our attention, constantly. And so we'll say things like, "Oh, Lord, just shake the house." And then, "Oh, no, you're doing." No, he's not going to do that. He's really not going to do that. But he's going to talk to you. It's going to be that still, small voice that you have to listen to. It requires intentionality. You listen to it. The whole thing in a grocery store, you start obeying that voice when he says, go down that aisle. You do that enough times, and then you'll realize, oh, that is God's voice. Oh, he is telling me something. Because I think God does care that we don't have to go back to the grocery store because we forgot to get banana peppers or something. I think God always is concerned about the things in our life that you don't think are important. And yes, in the big picture, they're not, but in your life, they are. And God's constantly talking to us about stuff. Constantly. But we have to eliminate the clutter. We have to eliminate the noise. We have to say, I'm going to say no to all this stuff, not always, not permanently, not forever, but for now, no, and I'm just going to concentrate on the Lord here. And just pay attention, listen to that voice, and then respond to it, obey it when it happens. This isn't exceptionally hard, but it does take an exceptional amount of intention that you have to pay attention to this stuff. Because again, everything's clamoring to pull your attention away from God and on to itself, whatever that is. Okay, back to Deuteronomy 13. We've only covered 4 of the words. You got 2 more to go. I'm going to read that verse again. Let me get back to Deuteronomy first, Jeff. There you go. Okay. You shall walk after the Lord your God. 1, fear him. That's 2. 3, keep his commands. 4, obey his voice. And 5, you shall serve him. You shall serve him. We do tend to think of serving God as, something we do here. You know, we tend to think of it as something we do. You know, I'm serving God because I'm running a camera today, or I'm a greeter, or, Todd, he serves the Lord all the time, right? So that's what he does. Okay, and we tend to think of that's what we mean by serving the Lord. Now, that is part of it. There's an element of that, and if you really want to do more of that, I'm sure Donna would welcome your help on different things. So we understand all that. However, that really means a lot more than just serving like that. Because Paul tells us over and over, and Jesus said this too, serving others is serving him. And if you really want to serve God, you have to serve each other. Now, we could pick apart the book of 1 Corinthians. Every once in a while you get someone to say, yeah, we should just be like the early church and how great things were. I'm like, have you ever read 1 Corinthians? Sorry, no, they weren't, okay? Most of the problems, however, in 1 Corinthians, I think, stems from an idea of they were not serving each other. And they were extremely selfish, doing everything for themselves, and Paul was addressing this. And there's quite a few different times that he mentions that, but I want to draw your attention to just one of these, and this is in verse 1 of 1 Corinthians chapter 4. There's a long passage here. I'm really only going to read one verse of this and show you how this applies. Let the man of God so consider us. In other words, look at us and see what we're doing. That's kind of what he's saying. So let the man of God consider us as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. This word stewards here is the only time Paul uses this word in all his writings. That word is used in Acts. John uses some. Luke uses it in other places than just Acts. He uses it in his gospel. It's not used a lot, but it's in there some. But this is the only single time Paul uses that word in all his writings, and that's it. But he talks about servants a lot, but this particular word is different. Why? Because who he's writing to. He's writing to Corinth, the Corinthians, living in the city of Corinth. Corinth is on this little, I'll give you some geography here. Okay, Greece, okay, kind of up here. There's this little, it's not an island, it's a peninsula called Peloponnese. Right in between that, they're connected together with this little isthmus, the Isthmus of Corinth. Corinth is on that thing. Now, if you're shipping something and you want to go from the Gulf of Corinth to the other side, to the, hang on, I want to say this properly. Saronic Gulf. That's on the east. So you're going from the west to the east, the Gulf of Corinth to the Saronic Gulf. It's only about 4 miles that this isthmus is. You have 2 choices to get there. You could do one, go a whole way around the Peloponnese Peninsula. It's a little bit of a journey, and it's pretty dangerous. There's a lot of shoals and rocky things, and there's a lot of ships that have succumbed to all that treacherous territory there. Of course, they don't have maps and things that we do now, in a sense, really marking out these things. They're really dangerous back then. So that's one way you can go. The other way you could go is you dock at Corinth. You would unload your vessel, transport it 4 miles across, and reload it on a different vessel to continue the journey. In fact, the Romans had this little idea of, for smaller ships, they built this rail system. Some of it, I understand, is still visible. That you can actually pull the ships out, and smaller ships, and they would pull them across. That had to be an awful job, and put them back in the other body of water. Okay. Now, the people of Corinth would have seen vessels all the time. Anybody ever watch Ben-Hur? Yeah, okay. Awesome movie. Another Charlton Heston. Wonderful. Anyhow, there's a section in there where he's on a ship, a Roman ship, and he's doing the oar thing. They're doing the oars in the back, horrible job, and they're doing that sort of thing. Roman vessels of that time period often would have 1 deck, but some of the bigger ones would have 2 decks, and the biggest ones had 3 decks of oarsmen. The ones on the lower level were called under-oarsmen. That's the word Paul's using. That's the word Paul's using. Talking about the under-oarsmen, not the top 2 guys, the ones on the lowest level. The ones on the lowest level were the lowest of the low. They rarely didn't get much sunlight down there in the bottom of a ship like that. The ship is running aground or it's sinking, they're going to be the first ones to die. Their life is devoted to just service to that ship. That's all they ever did. Yeah, horrible situation. The under-oarsmen. So when Paul writes this, he uses that term here. Let a man so consider us as servants or under-oarsmen of Christ and stewards of the mystery of God. Later on in verse 16, he says, I urge you to imitate me. To imitate me. Basically do what I'm doing. Paul's life is one devoted to service. And he's saying, that's how you need to be. Service to each other. That's what the book of 1 Corinthians seems to really be centered about. Tremendous passage. Okay, back to Deuteronomy. That's the 5th one. Here's the 6th one. I'm going to read the whole verse again, then we'll go back and grab the 6th one. You shall walk after the Lord your God, fear him, keep his commandments, obey his voice, and you shall serve him, and hold fast. I know it's 2 words in English, and hold fast to him. It's 2 words in English, it's 1 in Hebrew. Hold fast. What does that mean? Okay, here's a cool way of looking at it. It's to demonstrate confidence or trust. The word's not used a lot in the Old Testament, about 54 times. It can mean cling, it can mean follow, or stay close. You want to know what it means? Here's the very first time that it's used in the Bible. We hear this verse all the time at wedding ceremonies. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined, or Old King James, cleave, to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This is a staying close to. It's grab a hold of. It's almost entangled. There's a lot of different times in Scripture where it kind of means hold steady, or be steady, or go with. All those different phrases in here. It's a stay close to. Here's another great time this word is used. The book of Ruth. There we go, book of Ruth here. You know the story of Ruth. She's a widow now. She married an Israeli, a man from Judah, and he passes away. Her mother-in-law, Naomi, her husband passed away. And they're going to make their way back to Jerusalem. I'm not going to give you all the background of it, but anyhow, they end up back in Judah. I said Jerusalem, sorry, it's Judah. They end up back there, and Naomi's trying to get Ruth fixed up with somebody else because she doesn't want to have to take care of her all her life or something like that. So she's basically trying to get the young lady married off again. Ruth, the Moabite, this is verse 21 of Ruth chapter 2. Ruth the Moabite said, he also said, she's describing this man she met, Boaz. Ruth the Moabite said, he also said to me, you shall stay close, there's the word, to my young men until they have finished all my harvest. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women and that people do not meet you in any other field. So what does Ruth do? Verse 23. So she stayed close, there it is again, by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of the barley harvest, etc., etc. Stay close. Naomi knew that if Ruth did this, she'd be protected. She'd stay close to them. She would hold fast to them, kind of be entangled with them, and she'd be protected. That's how our life, our relationship with Jesus needs to be. So, let's look at Deuteronomy again. One more time. Tony's getting tired of hitting that button back again. Okay. Here we go. Nice and slow. You should walk after the Lord your God. You're pursuing him. You're walking. He's gone before you. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him. Not to be afraid of or scared, but it's a matter of respect, honor, knowing his authority, and keep his commands. You don't have to know the whole book. It's helpful if you do, maybe, but just obey, follow what you know. Keep his commands. Obey his voice. Keep your ears open. Listen. Listen for him. God's talking to us all the time. He's constantly talking to us. Listen. Obey his voice. You shall serve, the fifth one. You shall serve him. You're serving him when you're serving others. Following him. Serving him. You shall hold fast. Cling to. Be closely associated with him. Now, as I told you, following these 6 principles, again, not a list, but these 6 principles, following these 6 words, incorporating them in your life, doesn't necessarily mean you are all somehow just free from any bad things happening, or that you've somehow given yourself an inoculation and everything's perfect and wonderful. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean, man, you're going to endure those things in a whole lot better state than you would without it. Amen. 6 words incorporated into our life can really make a difference in everything that we do. Would you stand with me?